Okay, we are live. After a prolonged absence, I am back with another State of the Game vlog. We'll be looking at the patch notes that just got released. First up, balance changes, and we have Thunder Spirit. So the minimum damage of 10 got increased to a minimum damage of 50. I think that this has the most impact potentially early game, where you're using Thunder Spirit on the front line for the Spirit's energy, either with Water Spirit or with Stone Spirit that looks like it's going to be reintroduced to the game soon. So if you're using it on the front line, it's doing relatively little damage to the melee units, and if you're lucky, the enemy ranged units are hitting the maximum end of the damage. So by increasing this to 50, both on the way there and on the way back, you're actually doing some damage to the frontline units, especially in the early rounds 4 through 10. Might help you build some momentum there. Maximum damage change is minor enough where I'm not gonna provide a breakdown for that. And cooldown time goes to 10.98. It's pretty rare that you 3-star Thunder Spirit. I don't think that the 10 second to 9 second cooldown is going to make that big of a difference. About a 10% drop. I really don't think you're going to see Thunder Spirit with Divinity either. Water Spirit's just the superior unit from a Divinity lineup standpoint. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to the cooldown time reduction or the max damage. I think the minimum damage is the thing that we're going to see a big impact for. Okay, next up is Source. The amount of damage it increases every 2 seconds has gone up from 10, 15, 20 to 12, 18, 24. Think this is a bigger change than people are going to give it credit for. If you remember back, there were 2 changes to Source recently. So we already got 1 buff to move us up from, I think, 8 mana a second, 12 mana a second, 18 mana a second, something like that. And it was a 2-cost unit. And now we're at 12, 18, 24. If I'm not mistaken, the 2-cost or the 2-star value of 18 is what it used to be when it was a 3-star unit. So for a total investment of 3 gold, you're returning 18 every 2 seconds. And that used to be what you would need to 3-star a 2-cost unit to achieve. So I can see this being a bridge unit in Divinity, especially Divinity Warlock variants. I can see this being used as a bridge unit in a lineup that's going to eventually become 6 Beast, using Druids to pump out Whisper Seer to pump out summons, and Poisonous Worm to pump out summons, and the other units to get their abilities off more quickly. I can see it being used as a bridge unit for Goblins. Without mana items, Goblins frequently fail to get their abilities off before the opponent. And when they do get their abilities off more quickly, there's a dramatic shift in the battle, especially with Heaven Bomber. So I can see this being used as a bridge unit in a fair amount of scenarios and just sold off for 0 gold loss now that it's a 1-cost unit. It's minor tweaks, but the minor tweaks have added up over time to the point where this might become too good to pass up. Okay, next up is Storm Shaman. So this is the change that a lot of people were calling for. By moving Storm Shaman from a 4-cost unit to a 5-cost unit, you've now made it significantly more challenging to complete the 4 Shaman buff earlier in the game. Now you need one of 2 different legendary units, either Storm Shaman or Scryer, to achieve the 4 Shaman buff along with the Wizards. It's going to make it more challenging to get the full 6 cave, 4 glacier, 4 shaman build up and running, which I think is a good thing. It's going to make builds that have flexed divinity builds that have flexed 4 shaman, like the divinity water spirit build, even the 6 feathered build, it's going to make it a little bit more challenging to complete the 4 shaman synergy. That's a good thing for the game. What does it mean? It means builds that peak earlier with a hard carry, like knights with light blade 3-starred, or beasts with fallen witcher 2-star with blink, are going to be harder to counter. It means that those builds can more consistently deal more damage before a counter comes online. So I think that's going to change the pacing for the game, definitely. If you're looking at the actual shaman changes, they increase the HP by 25%, increase the damage by, 10 to 15%, armor by 1. They gave it 20 natural magic resistance. The ability duration was doubled for the 1-star variant. It goes from 2 to 4 seconds. And it was increased from 3 to 5 seconds for the 2-star variant. In line with that, the static storm range was also decreased. So especially at the 1-star variant, it went from 3 to 2, which is a 50% reduction. So it means when you miscast or you don't cast exactly on the unit that you're looking for, it's going to be more punishing. You can take a look at the nerf to Lava Shaman, which also had its range reduced by 1, to see how dramatic a 1 area of effect range nerf actually is. It's a pretty big change in the amount of units that are going to get silenced. So especially if you're trying to spread your units out to avoid AoE, it's going to be really challenging to hit, like, for example, more than 2 units with a single static storm. There is a cooldown reduction from 15 seconds to 10.86. Ooh, what this does mean is that if you're actually able to 2-star it, and then you can use it in a divinity lineup, that thing is going to be casting very, very, very frequently, right? You're gonna have overlapping. The cooldown time is going to be worse. It's going to be lower than the ability duration. So just think about Water Spirit 2-star, which also has an 8-second cooldown, and the type of frequency with which that goes off. And it's going to be up for 5 seconds if you can 2-star it. So you're going to have overlapping static storms all over the screen if you can actually manage to pull it off. So that's kind of neat. Okay, Shining Assassin. Attack rate reduced from 1.2 to 1.0. Not only did this unit in particular need love, but assassins in general needed love. I like to see the minor tweak instead of a rework. We'll see if this pays off, but I love the change. Synergy. Mage increased from 35 to 40%. Mage is in a pretty bad place early game just because Shining Dragon got removed, and it really doesn't have that much reliable area of effect until Tortola can come up. So I guess it means in the games where you're given mage units early, like maybe you get a turn 3 Flaming Wizard or a turn 4 Flaming Wizard, and you have a pole staff early on, you decide to go down the mage route, makes it slightly more effective. I think that once mage is easier to bridge to, perhaps when Stone Spirit is reintroduced and you can more reliably get like a 4 Spirit 3 mage build up and running to bridge, this is going to become more impactful. For the time being, it's a pretty minor change. Items. So the 2 extra bolts that are shot out of Holy Spirit Lance go from 60% damage to 40% damage. I think this item was super overtuned, giving a full 650 HP giving the 15% ability damage, giving the push from Black Ice Lance, and then giving the split shot at 60% was kind of crazy. I think 40% is still pretty reasonably high value, especially for a hard carry like Sniper 3 with items loaded on it, or Fallen Witcher, which naturally gets a ton of damage from the pure damage demon buff and from his transformation, but change in the right direction for sure. We'll see if it's enough. Barbaric Cuirass, ranged increased from 1 grid to 2 grids. So I assume this means both the positive aspects and the negative aspects and the negative debuffs that go on opposing units. So that means that you're doubling the range that units surrounded are getting, the minus armor buff, getting the attack speed debuff, and increasing the amount of units around you that are getting the positive armor buff and the positive attack speed buff. I think this is a bigger change than most people would expect, especially with 9 Warrior. If you think about hitting double the amount of units with an 8 armor buff in a comp like 9 Warrior, that's going to make a huge difference. It's also going to make the discrepancy between the amount of armor your units have and the amount of armor your opponent's units do not have. If you think about like Feathered, where they start out with 5 armor, and now they're going down to -3 if they don't have any plus armor items on, and you're doubling the amount of units for which that's the case. It's a pretty big change. Puppet Mask got the same effect. I like this a lot for Puppet Mask, especially for corner builds that have, like Hunters that have the units all grouped up in the corner. Even something like Mage that has that frequently has the DK with this on him, and giving the area effect unit to secondary carry like Flaming Wizard is nice. You might see this item chosen more frequently, other than just to give lifesteal to units that you don't want to silence, like Fallen Witcher that needs to get his ability off. So this is a cool change. Steel Plate Mail, same effect. It goes from 1 grid to 2 grids. I think this change is pretty big. There are many scenarios for which I would prefer to have 2 uncombined +5 armor items on a single unit, then combine it and get the +3 area of effect bonus. So for example, on Warpwood, there are relatively few scenarios where he's sharing the armor buff. Really, it's, you're just trying to make your Warpwood as tanky as possible, and 2 uncombined items achieve that better. So now if you're expanding the amount of units that get the secondary effect to this, it makes more sense to combine this item as opposed to just waiting. Maybe you get a lucky coin and you turn it into Ice Plate Mail. It gives you more of an incentive to combine the item now. And Heart of Taras goes from 1 grid to 3 grids. This is pretty nuts for any corner build with spells. 6 Mage 4 Spirits, Divinity, Warlock, anything where this spell steal is going to spread to basically every single unit if you do a corner build. So if you think about a corner build and you think about like a 3x3 grid and the unit right in the dead center, you're hitting everything, right? You're hitting every unit in your comp in that corner build. And if the majority of them are getting spells off and both lifesteal and spell steal, I think this goes from a niche item that you kind of get if you don't have too many more options, or maybe you throw it on Water Spirit in a Divinity build because it's your soul carry unit, something like that. This goes from an item that basically is intended only to buff an individual unit to an item that can buff your entire team if you're not spreading out. So pretty big change for this item. Let's see how it plays out. Okay, wrapping it up, we have item drops. I think the change here is that previously, rounds 25 and 30, you could theoretically get a rare item drop. It didn't happen super often, but you certainly could get one drop on 25 and 30. And now it seems like that's being ruled out now. This is not talking about I don't think this is talking about the items offered in the shop, the 3 choices you get. This is talking about the item that actually drops. So previously, around 25 or 30 could drop a rare item, and now they can't. Rounds 35 to 50, it's saying it only drops 1 rare item. So previously, around 35, it could drop a common rare item. Same for round 40, and now it's saying that you're getting a guaranteed rare item to drop as long as you kill the creep round, as opposed to before where it was a chance that it would be a common item that dropped. And now it's saying specifically for round 40, you both get a common and a rare item. Round 40 is usually the make or break round for super late game, where you can be upset because you can be lacking the common item to combine into the I guess the legendary combination that you need to hit. So it's kind of nice that they threw in both 1 common and 1 rare item for that make or break round 40. That should help games close out a little bit more quickly. I think overall, I like every single one of these changes. There isn't a single change here that I dislike. Storm Shaman change is probably the easiest way to address the 4 Shaman buff without completely changing it. I'd like to see more small tweaks in the future. And I think the devs should keep up the good work, and they've been publishing week to week statistics on the most successful units and the least successful units and the most utilized units and the least utilized units, that sort of thing. Those infographics are getting posted to both the subreddit and the Discord, so they have a good idea of what's going on. I think in addition to numbers solely on abilities, you could also look to numbers like attack cooldown, attack damage, life, just minor 5% tweaks here or there for units that are persistently showing up in that underperforming list that they publish would be a good direction for the game. Okay, we'll wrap up for today, and thanks everyone for watching.